Welcome to the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers as we have a lot of college basketball tonight. College basketball season is here. Also, several games in the NBA. Week 9 of the NFL now wrapped up as the Steelers hold off the Bears last night. And we'll talk with one of the top handicappers of Vegas Insider, Scott Pritchard, coming up in just one moment. But before we get to Scott, I want to tell you about BetMGM. They're the king of sports books. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. That's right, for new players only. Bet on any NFL money line, and if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. New players only, must be 21 years or older, and in the following states it is legal: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. only. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sports books. All right. We have not had this gentleman on the Daily Insider yet, but we welcome him on now. He is the NBA money leader in units so far this season. He's totally killing it in totals. I mean, over 12 units already that he has amassed in totals in the NBA. And it's Scott Pritchard who is joining us. Scott, good to see you again. How are you?
Hey, Kevin, I'm great, but enough about me, my man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Not doing as well in the NBA as you are, but just trying to get everything organized, considering we have NFL, college football, NBA, college basketball, and hockey all going on this month.
Yeah, this is a great time to be a sports bettor. Great time. Any time is a great time to be in Las Vegas. I've been here now for the past 29 years, and I just have to say that with college basketball tipping off, exciting. NBA basketball is huge. NFL, football, college football. Again, great time to be a sports bettor, my friend.
Now let's look back at last night in the NFL, Scott, and the Steelers hold off the Bears 29-27, a game that looked like it was going to stay under the total until the fourth quarter. Chicago exploded for 3 touchdowns. They took the lead late, but then Pittsburgh had a field goal in the final seconds to win it. What were your thoughts on this one? Is Pittsburgh now 0-4 against the spread as a favorite this year, and the Bears, even though they lost, they get the road cover?
Very interesting. The Chicago Bears got the backdoor cover. Early on, it looked like the Steelers are going to cruise, and certainly the better team. But I was pleasantly surprised with the improvement of Fields, the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. He looked very good, very competitive. He continues to come along for the Chicago Bears. And yeah, it was amazing, man. The Bears had somewhat of an outside shot to win the game straight up with that monster long record-setting field goal attempt. It was dead center, split the uprights, but just a little bit short. But yeah, Steelers have struggled ATS against the number, but and again last night did not cover. Congrats to Chicago. As you know, in Vegas, my friend, never mind who wins, it's who covers.
Now, looking at just wrapping up this past week in the NFL, Scott, before we talk NBA, your thoughts on some of the underdogs that came through? The Broncos, a big win over the Cowboys. Also, Jacksonville upsetting Buffalo. They didn't score a touchdown, but it was enough to beat the Bills. Any thoughts on those upsets?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. Actually, I'm a dog player. Points mean more than opinions, but I have to say I got caught. I was on big with the Rams on Sunday night. I felt the Rams. I really feel that the Tennessee Titans are overhyped, overrated. But again, we saw the quarterback for the Lions, Stafford, coming back down to earth. He looked like he was in a Detroit Lions uniform. That's the quarterback I remember that used to play for the Detroit Lions there. But I have to say, a pick six doing his best Carson Wentz impersonation, and then he came back with another pick six. So it's real simple in the NFL, my friend. If you turn the ball over, you lose. Now, that's very, very difficult to forecast, from a handicapping standpoint, who's going to have more turnovers in this game. But, turnovers will offset talent. Same way with adverse weather, it offsets talent as well. But I have to give the Titans their kudos. Again, only 2 losses on the year without Henry, their stud running back. But again, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We've played 8-9 games up to this point. Long way to go. So I'm excited for the rest of the games. But I have to say the Dallas Cowboys at home is a double-digit favorite, losing against the Broncos. That was a surprise. Another big surprise for me. I've been riding the Bills bandwagon for the past couple of years, Kevin, and the fact that they just offensively could not get it going against the hapless Jacksonville Jags very, very surprised with that outcome.
Yeah, and the Bills, again, at times they look like a Super Bowl type team, and then other times, they fell short. And granted, they didn't allow Jacksonville to score a touchdown, but they couldn't get a touchdown themselves. Now let's look to NBA, Scott, and 31-17 so far in the season at Vegas Insider, plus 1235, and it's been all total so far. Now, obviously, one of the big things talked about this year in the NBA has been the drop-off in scoring and some of the rules. James Harden not getting to the line 20 times a game anymore. And you've actually kind of jumped on this before the odds makers adjusted on it. What were your thoughts on that, trying to jump on these totals before the odds makers decided to lower them?
Well, it's a great observation on your part, Kevin, but, welcome to my world. I've been doing this professionally for 35 plus years, and the key to anything in life, you have to see it before it happens. By the time the odds makers catch up to it, the value is lost. But I respectfully say the odds makers are still slow playing as far as updating the numbers here. I do not blindly do anything. I will say it's a 2.5 hour contract, night in, night out. I'm handicapping these games objectively. It just so happens some of my cronies that have been buying my picks on Vegas Insider for years pointed out to me respectfully that, man, oh man, you've had a slew of under plays, and that's just the way it is. I don't proactively go into it saying, hey, I'm leaning on the under, but people lie, numbers don't, and the numbers clearly show, Kevin, but we knew this going in. The numbers clearly show that, as you mentioned, Kevin Harden, his numbers are down, his free throws are down. Dame, his numbers are down, his free throws are down. Overall, scoring in the league is down. Don't take my word for it. Again, people lie, numbers don't. Of the 30 teams, just a few days ago when I last tracked this as one of my handicapping tools, I noticed that 26 of the 30 teams in the NBA had a considerable more unders than over. So just about that. But eventually the odds are starting to reflect that. A lot of times with it being a marathon, not a sprint, it'll balance itself out. But again, it's a 1 day, 2.5 hour contract, nothing more, nothing less. I've been fortunate. I've been blessed off to another good start.
And you know what, too, Scott, like looking at some of these numbers, we started the season and totals were at 230. They were way up there. You're not seeing that as much anymore. Now you're getting into the 215, 220 range, and even those games are staying under the total.
Well, that's another great observation, Kevin, because I can remember 30 years ago back in Chicago when I was betting the Detroit Pistons whenever they take on the Bulls. But the Pistons with the bad boys of Detroit, if you will, they were hand checking, grabbing, tackling with the Bill Lambiers and the Dennis Rodmans of the world, Rick Mahorn. They kind of reinvented things. And I noticed at that time when I was betting totals successfully that, you're looking at NBA totals at 210, 215, 220 back then, and they were settling in at 175, 178, 182. And once again, in season, it took the odds makers a while. Again, they slow played it, and I rode that wave much like I'm doing now 30 years later.
Now, what about tonight's card, Scott? Anything you like? There are only 3 games tonight. Bucks, 76ers, Hawks, Jazz, Blazers, Clippers. Anything stands out to you?
Yeah, actually, right now, one game stands out regarding a total. I do have opinions on those 3 games, those 3 teams, and right now I'll share with you Red Rover. I like to say I like the over, but I have to tell you when it comes to basketball tonight, shocking, I don't like the over. I like the under in the Milwaukee Bucks Philadelphia 76er game. You always want to check the expected and the confirmed starting lineups for these 2 respective teams, simply because you have oftentimes it's not who's playing, ultimately it is who is not playing. And for the Milwaukee Bucks, I just checked this a few minutes ago. DiVincenzo, he's been out. He's a starter. He's been out since the latter part of last year. You also have Brook Lopez, their center. He's out, has been out for multiple games now. Chris Middleton remains out. Holiday is back, has been back, but you really only have 2 starters, Giannis and Holiday, that are playing for the Milwaukee Bucks. But conversely, on the other side of the coin, you're looking at the Philadelphia 76ers. We know Ben Simmons is a basket case in the fact that he hasn't played yet. Joel Embiid out. Tybal, their stud defensive stalwart, out. Tobias Harris out. And if you don't know this, you're going to be out in the street. So I like the under in the Bucks 76ers game tonight.
Yeah, and Philadelphia coming off a loss to the Knicks last night. And, of course, without Embiid, without Simmons, who's been out the whole season, and Harris, that not a lot of scoring from those guys. We'll see if Milwaukee bounces back, Scott, because Milwaukee has not been very sharp so far, at least this season. So we'll see if Milwaukee bounces back. Now, quickly, even though it's a long season coming up, college basketball starts tonight. You have a couple games at Madison Square Garden, Kansas, Michigan State, Kentucky, Duke, among all of them. There's 100-something games on the board. What's your strategy, at least for college basketball early on? You like to jump on these games early, or you like to kind of let things settle?
I never let anything settle. I like to be proactive. I like to be aggressive. I like to see things before the odds makers. I always laugh when I'm at the sports books and people say, I don't want to bet early. I want to wait. I said, yeah, you want to wait till the odds makers figure it out and get bet into sharp lines. Maybe you should wait for the Super Bowl when they have just one game in 2 weeks and they've had 6 months to figure things out. I want to bet early. I want to bet often. I want to avoid the risk of being shut out. My final four, if anyone cares, and I'm not convinced that anyone does, but you heard it here first, Gonzaga, Memphis, Michigan, Kansas, Gonzaga, winning it all.
Scott Pritchard, you could find his picks at Vegas Insider. He right now is the NBA money leader, and he is dominating in totals. So you can find his totals not only tonight, but also moving forward for the rest of the season. Also, Scott handicaps basically everything. So you can find his picks in every sport at Vegas Insider. Scott, as always, thanks a lot for the time. We'll catch up with you soon.
Kevin, I'm a big fan of you, big fan of the show. Keep doing what you're doing, my man. It's working.
All right. Appreciate it, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's Scott Pritchard right there, and you can find his picks at Vegas Insider. And he does like the under in the Bucks 76ers game tonight in Philadelphia. The 76ers dealing with a lot of stuff right now. Joel Embiid testing positive for COVID. He was out of the game last night. The Knicks end up winning in Philadelphia. The Knicks now 2-0 against the 76ers. They went for a long stretch without beating Philadelphia. So now the Knicks have won a couple in a row against them, and Philadelphia now back at home against Milwaukee. And the Bucks, who visited the White House yesterday and celebrated their championship, a little bit of I don't want to say a rough start for the Bucks, because right now, still the favorites to win the Central, even though Chicago is playing pretty well. Cleveland's playing a little bit above their heads right now. And Milwaukee just needs to get back on track sooner or later, because they really have struggled of late. Let's take a look now at DraftKings and their championship series. Now, if you missed it, the Sportsbook National Championship was this past weekend in Weehawken, New Jersey, and $1 million prize was handed out to first place, and a very competitive 3 days of betting, NBA, NFL, and college football. And the GOAT, we're still looking to see who will be crowned as the greatest of all time. That's right, the GOAT. And the DraftKings Championship Series is the ultimate competition of contest winners from daily fantasy sports, sportsbook, and casino. The one and only place you can compete in the king of competitions. The best of the best in each domain will compete for series supremacy in their own domain's Tournament of Champions. They'll have one goal in mind: win the ultimate crown and earn the title of the greatest of all time. That's right. You can be the GOAT. You could be this guy. Be the GOAT. And you can score your seats to the Tournament of Champions. Go to DraftKings.com, and you could find more information to go on the path to the Tournament of Champions. Now, let's look at the three NBA games tonight. Scott already hit on Milwaukee and Philadelphia, but a couple of other games that we want to look at. And first, I mean, considering there's only three, so we'll look at the other two. Hawks and the Jazz, they meet in Utah, and the Jazz, they actually now back home off of a tough end to their road trip. They lost at Miami, and then Orlando rallied past Utah on Sunday night. Kind of an inexplicable loss for the Jazz, losing 107-100 as 11-point favorites. So Utah coming off of back-to-back losses for the first time this season. They're laying 8 against Atlanta. The Jazz beat the Hawks, in fact, to start that road trip back last week, 116-98. Did so without Donovan Mitchell. They covered as 1.5-point favorites, and they cruised past the Hawks. Atlanta, I don't want to say one-hit wonder. That's not fair. It's early in the season. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year against Milwaukee. They knocked out the top-seeded Philadelphia 76ers. But the Hawks right now, they've lost 4 straight. They've lost 6 of 7. They were up 15 on Golden State last night. Steph Curry dropped 50 on the Hawks, and Golden State came back and won 127-113. The Hawks led the Suns by double digits going into the fourth quarter, lost that game. Atlanta's just found a way to not hold on to these leads, and look at what they've given up recently. 127 to Golden State, 121 to Phoenix, 116 to Utah, 117 to Brooklyn, 111 to Washington, 122 to Philadelphia, 122 to Washington. So we talked with Scott Pritchard about the totals and them dropping, but the Hawks, though, they're terrible defensively right now. And Atlanta, 1-6 straight up, 0-7 ATS on the road, which is pretty amazing. And the Jazz now back at home. They are 3-0 so far in the season at home. They didn't cover in their last game at home against the Kings. That was last week, laying 9.5, and they won by 6. Now, the late game inside of the NBA, the Blazers and the Clippers out of Staples Center. LA's laying 3. This is kind of interesting with these two teams because they've exchanged a pair of blowouts so far. The Clippers beat the Blazers 116-86 at Staples Center on October 25th. But in the last meeting in Portland, 4 days later, October 29th, the Blazers won 111-92. The Clippers are riding a 4-game winning streak. And the Blazers, they've won their last 2 both at home. They beat the Lakers on Saturday night. They missed 43-pointers. 40, not 14, 43-pointers, Portland. But they still won by 15. However, the Blazers, though, they've been bad on the road, 0-4 so far. 5-1 at home, 0-4 on the road. And the totals, how about this? The totals dropping. The first matchup, 230 under. Second matchup, 223.5 under. Tonight, 220.5. So the odds makers adjusting to that, and we'll see if the third meeting, I mean, you don't see teams play 3 times already within the first month of the season, less than a month. But Clippers playing better. Portland has been good at home, bad on the road. And we'll see if the Clippers can bounce back from that bad home loss to Portland the last time, or the bad road loss to Portland, excuse me, the last time out. Now, college basketball tonight, and you have a ridiculous amount of games in college basketball. And you go with the 2 in New York City at Madison Square Garden, Kansas, Michigan State. Kansas laying 4.5 there. And the Jayhawks with a couple of transfers coming in. When you look at, these games early, and, something that Scott mentioned about, jumping on them early, don't wait. I personally am not a fan of these kinds of games, of these big program games out of the gate, because I think there's better opportunities out there. There's over 100 games in college basketball. Now, I want to just bring something up on the screen here for a moment. I want to bring this up and show this to you, because you're going to say to yourself, my goodness, there are a ton of games tonight in college basketball. So I want to show this to you really fast. All right. So tonight, if you can see this, I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger for you. There we go. All right. So maybe you can't see all the numbers clearly, but look at all of them. I'm going to scroll down. Look at all of these games in college basketball. This is tonight, and then these are the added games. More of them. All of those games to choose from. I am not trying to tell you to stay away from Kansas, Michigan State, or Kentucky Duke. But when you look at all these games, there are plenty of opportunities, especially with, you look at overvalued teams. I personally think in this situation tonight, or at least the first few nights, that you go with underdogs. You try to find the underdogs out there in college basketball. Kansas, Michigan State, neutral site game in New York. So that says a lot about Kansas already laying 4.5 in this one. But going through, obviously college basketball is it can be extremely overwhelming when there are 115 games in a night and there are 360-something teams to keep track of, and everyone's going to have a line. This isn't college football where you have the FCS and FBS, and there's a difference there where everyone's just the same in college basketball. You say, you look at Ball State and Georgia Southern, or you look at Niagara and Xavier. You go through all these games, but there are opportunities. And I would say don't go crazy in night number one, but maybe let the first few days settle to see and kind of react to what these teams do. And if you feel good enough about taking some of these teams out of the gate, that's perfectly fine. You look at this one right here in the middle. Missouri they're just called Kansas City now. They were UMKC, the Kangaroos. They play Minnesota. Minnesota, a Big Ten team, is laying 7 points to a team in the Summit League. All right, so what does that tell you? That a team from the Summit League already, that's not a champion. Minnesota's just not a very good team. And I would say teams with new coaches, there's a lot of different rosters because of the transfer portal, but teams with new coaches that are not supposed to do well, you got to look to fade them. And find those teams that had those changes. Minnesota's the number one example. That Richard Pitino he got fired. He went to New Mexico. But Minnesota has got a brand new roster, a brand new coach, and them laying 7 in their season opener tells you a lot. So that's the look, and you can go to our odds page at Vegas Insider, and you can peruse all the games. The other game tonight, Kentucky and Duke. And Duke laying 2.5. This is the first game that Mike Krzyzewski, first game of his final season as head coach of Duke before he retires. So you have this game as well, and Duke opened up laying 1. Now they're laying 2.5. That's the 9:30 game at Madison Square Garden. John Calipari and Kentucky. We'll see what they do. And Calipari's got all the one and done guys, it feels like. So there's always and now you have new players that you bring in. These teams haven't played since the opener of the 18-19 season, which feels like a million years ago with all the stuff that's happened. But Duke beat Kentucky 118-84 as 2.5-point dogs in that game. So now you look at Kentucky and you say, okay, they're a short dog. The money's come on Duke, but still, I think these two games, these are the two primetime games, but it's also, I think there are better opportunities out there in college basketball tonight. Also, we got Maction this evening and a couple games inside the Mid-American Conference. 3 games tonight, 3 games tomorrow. You have Buffalo, Miami of Ohio this evening, and Miami of Ohio laying 7.5. Both teams at 4 and 5. Ohio's at Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan laying 6. Ohio off the big win last week over Miami of Ohio. Akron getting 25 at Western Michigan tonight. And you got 3 games tomorrow, and then the MAC is done for the week. And plenty of action coming up this weekend. Also, you have North Carolina, Pittsburgh Thursday at Heinz Field. Should be a pretty good matchup there. Pitt's laying 6.5. So that's the look at tonight's slate. And NFL returns on Thursday night. Ravens and Dolphins from Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. And right now the Ravens laying 7.5. Tua Tagovailoa is a question mark. He has that finger injury. If he doesn't play, it's Jacoby Brissett once again, who played in Sunday's victory over Houston. Baltimore's had Miami's number, but also at the same time, Ravens laying 7.5. Feels like the whole world's going to be on them. And Dolphins at 2-7. Dolphins have not been this big of a home dog this season. They lost to the Bills. They lost to the Colts. They lost to the Falcons. But getting over a touchdown at home, that has not happened for the Dolphins so far on the campaign. And we'll see if they can somewhat hang around with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And you look at the Ravens, too. They've had 2 overtime wins, games they could have easily lost to the Vikings and the Colts. Again, Baltimore's had so many games that they've been very close to losing, and they found a way to win. So now you wonder if that, if they can do that again on the road on the short week. Dolphins on a short week, obviously, too, but they're at home. They're not traveling. Let's tell you about BetMGM once again. And bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Again, this is for new players only. Must be 21 years or older. Bet on any NFL money line. And if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Legal in Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. only. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. You know who they are? They're the king of sportsbooks. I am Kevin Rogers. My thanks to Scott Pritchard for joining us to talk NBA. And he is the NBA money leader at Vegas Insider, so check out his picks now. And he's been on top of the totals the entire season, so he's been great at that. We'll be back with you coming up tomorrow at noon Eastern time. And if you missed any of today's show, you can find it on our homepage at Vegas Insider, also on our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider as well. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching. And as always, best of luck with your bets.